The summer of 2013 was not an easy one for me. I had just graduated from college, saying goodbye to my best friends, and I was working full-time as a day camp counselor for middle school kids. It was stressful, so I was really looking forward to spending a week in California with my family on vacation. The flight out was non-eventful, but that was not a theme that carried on throughout our trip. We hadn't seen my godfather in years, so we joined him for dinner during our short stay in San Francisco. George, Eleanor, and I spent all evening talking to his son about Doctor Who. We went through the Winchester Mystery House, admiring the beautiful gardens and stained glass windows, in addition to all the funky architecture. We spent a day at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, watching whales and fish. George was particularly entranced by the deep-sea exhibit with the bluefin tuna. We went to a small Bigfoot museum for Eleanor, and spent an afternoon zip-lining through the redwoods for me. Once we ventured out of the cities, though, that's when things got interesting. We spent a day driving out to Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Parks. The scenery was gorgeous. You can't imagine the immensity of these trees unless you're standing near them, and then you just get overwhelmed by their sheer height. As beautiful as the scenery was, that's when our trials began. We checked into our cabins, one for the kids and one for our parents. There was a lodge close by with a restaurant, a gift shop, and a convenience store. There was also a ranger station where we checked in. They provided us with 2 lamps for us to use at night. When we're on vacation, my family likes to take the time exploring local grocery stores instead of going to restaurants, especially when there are plenty of picnic areas around. Though there wasn't a full-on grocery store up in the mountains, we contented ourselves with a convenience store, picking up the basics for a picnic dinner. We drove around the park until we came to a nice picnic area, where we accidentally chased away a deer. We sat down at the bench with our crackers, cheese, fruit, and lunch meat to enjoy our dinner. Everything was going nicely. We enjoyed a casual conversation about nothing consequential when Eleanor looked over to the hillside and said, "Oh look, the deer's back." My mom looked over to where my sister was pointing and exclaimed, "Oh my God, that's not a deer. That's a bear." Our heads collectively whipped around and spotted the hulking brown shape wandering over the hill. Immediately, we sprang into action, loading all the food into the car as quickly as possible, jumping in and slowly driving away so as to least disturb this rather small bear. We spent a few minutes driving through the picnic area on our way out, keeping a careful eye on the bear, laughing at the group of loud adults a few areas over who didn't even spot the bear at all. Once the bear wandered away from the road, we went on our way, gradually calming down from the adrenaline rush. After that, we had a nice evening and spent a lot of time looking at the stars. We spent a lot of time by the outlets in the lodge, making sure that George and I got checked in for our flight the next day. We had to fly back early so that George and I could get back for work. He worked as a soccer referee, and I was driving my campers to an overnight camp in Michigan for a few days. We returned to our cabins to go to sleep. The dim lamps the rangers gave us came in handy, as our cabins did not have electricity. The kids' cabin had 3 beds, so when we went to sleep, we were all excited that we got to spread out and didn't have to share. This was not a good idea, as it turned out. When I woke up in the early hours of the morning, I was shivering and uncomfortable. We had underestimated how cold it could get in the mountains in California. I didn't know if George or Eleanor were up, so I called out to them, asking if they were chilly. Eleanor didn't respond, but George answered in the affirmative. Quickly problem-solving, George promptly hopped over into my bed. Not long after that, Eleanor came to join us. It was a tight squeeze, but that didn't matter. We were finally warm. When our parents came into our cabin to wake us up, they couldn't stop laughing at us. When they finally caught their breath, they kindly pointed out the closet behind the door and the blankets perched on the top shelf. I responded with a casual, "Are you fucking kidding me?" The lamps the rangers gave us were so dim that we didn't see the blankets, and our parents hadn't thought to let us know about them that night. I guess that's a parent's love for you. They made it up to us in spades, though. That morning, we made the trek to the airport closest to the national park, about an hour away. We jammed out to music, from a musical no one's heard of, and arrived with time to spare. However, when we went to check in, we learned that our flight had been canceled. Needless to say, Mom wasn't happy. The airline couldn't even get us on a flight to another airport for a connecting flight. Our only option was for our parents to drive us 4 hours away to the airport in San Francisco, where they would then have to drive all the way back to the park. Mom was livid. Although it was an unfortunate turn of events, the drive went smoothly, and George and I made it to our new flight just fine. We were picked up at O'Hare Airport by our aunt at 3 in the morning. That gave me the opportunity to get to bed around 4 in order to wake up 3 hours later and drive my rambunctious campers to Michigan. After George and I left, Mom, Dad, and Eleanor went back to enjoy the rest of their time at Sequoia and Kings Canyon. They wound up returning to the aquarium and exploring a county fair before their time in California was done. Then it was time for them to join us back home. While it might not have been the smoothest vacation, it was truly a vacation with the Mitchell family, and it was perfect.